And the world opens up fairly quickly, and we're going to talk a lot about the world. In fact, we should just probably get into that. It's hard to say exactly where to start because I don't like going through the story. I think that's kind of boring and doesn't really serve anybody. But I do want to talk about a really early standout, which to me, and you feel free to throw in a standout as well. But I'll pick one first, and it would be the king of, I can't remember the town, but there's a king in a town who hates his job so much that he asks people to be the king in his stead.
Yeah.
This is the first of many moments where I'm playing this game and I'm like, I have never seen anything like this in any other game. And this is like from the NES.
That's beautiful. It's definitely it's jarring when you're doing it too if you're not like using a walkthrough because it's early in the game and you don't really need the walkthrough by that point.
Mhm.
So you're trying to find the right next move to do and then you just like recovered like the cane or whatever it is for the king and he's like, "Wow, that's so great. Do you want to be king?" And so you get the crown and then he's off gambling.
Isn't he betting on monster fights?
Right, which is one of the new little gambling things you can do. And he's just over there hanging out, bit like betting on fights. He's like, "Ah, I lost again for the 30th time." And like, everyone's just kind of cheering him on, but it's like his father's up in the top of the castle saying, "Oh man, that guy's bringing shame to our damn kingdom. I got to smack some sense into him."
Oh my God.
It's
It's,
lovely.
yeah. And you're just like the king. And I know this one says that like this website saying king for a day, which is a good, funny little thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, he just kind of hands it to you. He's like, here, you do it. Bye. And you're just like, what? And they just like walk around. I guess I'm the king now. But you can't do
Mm.
shit. Like there's nothing you can do about it. But I mean, and think about all the effort that must have gone into coding that. I just think about that like way back in the day. Like somebody had to code this thing where you're suddenly the king and your mission kind of stops. And there's no like payoff per se to it. Like it doesn't turn into anything. It's just, hey, this king doesn't like to be king and you can be king for a day. And I respect the hell out of that. Like they had
Mm.
no reason to build that, but it's such a great world builder that you get to see that. I don't know. I'm surprised.
This took that concept that was like somewhat explored in Dragon Quest II, but never fully realized. I never felt like there was a town that was so standout. Like you remember in Dragon Quest II, where it's like you come on like one of these territories that's like in the southeastern part of the map, and you sleep at the inn, and then supposedly you inhaled the darkness, and one of your team members goes down, and then you have to go get a leaf, and you come back and you revive him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just so like it's just such a poor example of attempt at like storytelling through the town, but you could tell they were trying.
Yeah. The effort was there.
And so this is a more realized version of that. There are so many memorable areas and towns to explore, especially once you get the ship and
Hmm.
once you can start exploring that way,
Yeah.
because the world really just opens up. That happened in Dragon Quest 2 as well. Like the world opens up, but things are just so cryptic in that game. In this one, every area serves a purpose. And you know, one of the areas that you can go once you get the ship is this little island with it's like kind of mystical. There's like these two sage princesses like worshiping like an altar, and they say you have to go get the six orbs, and the six orbs are going to bring justice back here or light back here or whatever, and then you can hatch the phoenix Ramia. And I remember in Dragon Quest 2, you remember how you got some of those like key orb items?
Yeah. And they like showed up in like a weird part of the menu or something. I can't
It was
remember.
just a random patch of grass behind a tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's no story or anything that goes into it. It's just, it's there.
Versus in this one, what are some of the orbs that you remember?
Oh, I have a specific note to talk about one of them. Um, the first one I remember was awesome. It was seeing the pirates.
Yeah.
Is getting landing near those pirates and being like, oh yeah, we buried that buried treasure. Like there's a cool little story about buried treasure, and
Yeah.
you push the rock out of the way, and there it is. That was like, oh, and that kind of reminded me of that one you just mentioned where it was like it's near a tree. Um, but God, if you just put a little effort, put a little story into it, like these pirates had it and it's buried treasure, and you go over there
Yeah.
and you find it. You just got to do something like that, and then suddenly it's genius.
And what's especially genius about this is that throughout the game, although a guide is necessary for parts of it, like there are just some parts that I would not recommend you do without a guide. A lot of this you can do just based on the game's internal gossip system. Just by gossiping with characters in the world, you can find out little tricks of the trade, like, oh, the pirates, I hear they have buried treasure in one part of the map. And so you want to talk to every single NPC. When you go to that pirate area, if you go there during the day, did you go there during both times of day and night?
I don't recall caring about the daytime, so no, I don't think specifically for that one. No.
If you went there during the day, there is nobody there. If you went there at night, the entire place is populated with pirates, and they're all like, lollygagging about, and like, there's like a captain of the pirates says like, "Are you really going to fight Baramos?" And if you say yes, she says, "I respect you," and so I'm going to tell you the secret. And so there are so many cool things, like little things like that. There's another town that is drastically different between day and night. Do you know what it is?
I don't know the name of it, but it's the Cursed Town, right?
Oh, well, the Cursed Town, definitely. That is definitely one that is, drastically different between day and night. Because that also entails one of the orbs that you have to get. And that one was like, I wouldn't have figured that out on my own.
No.
But the other one, I think the town is called Isis. It's like the area towards the desert.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. And did you get
The Puff
a little
Puff?
puff puff action over there?
No, I took some advice and I stayed away.
Do you want to know what happens?
Sure. I don't know what happens. You have to tell me.
You get offered a puff puff, and you say yes, and she takes you up into a room, and then the lights turn off,
Yeah.
and then when the lights turn back on, it's one of those big muscle guys, and then you just feel weird. Like that's what the thing is.
It's a classic catfish.
Oh my god! I remember when I first did that, I was like, "All right, I'm getting a puff puff," and then we did that, and then I was like, "I cannot believe that made it into like a kid's game." I
So
know
funny.
Japan has a different view of things. I'm shocked that it would come to America like that, and
That happened to me when I was a kid because I played this when I was a kid, and I must have got the puff puff. So maybe I'm just reliving my trauma somehow.
and a little side note, they completely duplicate that in Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah, you're telling me.
So
I'll
definitely
be
check it
looking
out.
forward to it.
If you want to get, if you want to feel weird in HD, that's how you'll do it.
Excellent. Another cool thing
yeah.
about that town is they overprice everything.
Yeah.
And so once you start saying no, because you obviously can't afford it,
Mhm.
they'll barter down prices and they'll go as low as to say that you're robbing them. And like you actually get some good deals on some of the items there. But it just adds like that much more personality to the town.
Well, how many games now have a barter system? Like that's so
Oblivion.
genius.
But it's just so that one's like, okay, you can like move on the left or right on the scale. But I don't know.
yeah,
It is genius.
Yeah, yeah. It's in this game was in the NES era. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll probably keep reiterating that this game is in the NES era because some of the things are so forward thinking. It just blows my mind that they would have. It seems like they wanted to try a lot of things and actually succeeded in most of them,
Yeah.
which is kind of impressive. I do want to talk about. We were talking about the 6 orbs. Let's talk about some of the weirder quests in this game, and the one big standout to me
Is the dealer quest.
the dealer quest.
Yes.
I have never in any RPG I've ever played come up with a quest like the dealer quest. This is
Use the damn walkthrough. That or just listen to us because we're gonna give you the rundown.
yeah. There's a town, and it would be over by Russia, I guess, or over on the very very far east.
Japan.
Japan. Yeah. It would be Japan. And it's just a weird patch of land in between some trees. And you go there and they're like, we need to build this, but we don't know how. What are you going to do? To solve this weird problem, which it doesn't, I mean, maybe it tells you like in the gossip somewhere, but you have to put a dealer or a merchant, whatever you call them, into your party and then travel over there. Doesn't matter what level he is. And then he goes, hey, I'm going to take off. I'm going to help this town. And then he leaves your party. Like, it ends. You go back there later, it becomes the town of whatever his name was. Like, I named mine Bart because I was watching The Simpsons, I think, at the time. And it became like Bartsville or something like that. It was like Bartville or something, right? Like Ville, I think they put at the end. And you constantly go back as you do your quests, and the town builds up and blossoms into probably one of the bigger towns in the game. And it's got life and it's got all these people, but you notice it could end right there and already be the craziest story, like one of the weirder quirks in gaming. But it goes an entire step further and becomes a story about how the merchant then becomes corrupted and greedy and takes advantage of the people and makes them work long hours and takes all the money for himself.
Yeah.
And this guy, he could have been your party member. Like, he totally wasn't, because I'm not going to put a dealer in my party. But he could have been your party member. And he turned into this monster to the point that the villagers try to, and successfully, upheave him and throw him in jail. And so the jail that he built, he ends up in and needs you to help bail him out. And you do. And he learns this crazy lesson about not, respecting people. What a beyond the, like, there's nothing like that in any game, and it's like a complete story. It blows me away that this made it into an NES game.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole political narrative there that I think was just limited by the console possibilities, because my entire experience with this was an experience in frustration. For starters, there is no gossip about
Okay. I'm not crazy.
A merchant. Like, take yourself a dealer to the guy, and maybe that's what he needs. You do, like, if you go to this like little Indian village, like to the west, I forget what the place is called, Seoul or something. Totally worthless town, but they tell you, yeah, there was a guy who settled in the area to the east. Did you see a town? And then you can answer yes or no, and they're like, well, I guess he made it, but you don't know that it's there. And so, like, I eventually found it, but then it's not clear, like, 'cause it's not a town. It's just a guy in like a patch of grass.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hope to build a town here someday. So, like, somehow you're supposed to make the connection that you have to go back to WIERDEST Tavern, which you probably haven't done since the beginning of the game.
No, you probably forgot it existed. I didn't even think about it.
And so there's that. Then you bring your merchant back. You let her stay or him stay. I picked her because it's actually it looks like Anna, who is the dealer in later Dragon Quest games, and so like there's some nostalgia there.
Yeah.
And so like you come back at different cues because there's like 4 stages at which you have to come back to this town.
Right.
And so like the third stage is when the town really blossoms, but you have to have had like 4 or 5 of the orbs by this point. And then at the final one, when they overthrow the merchant, you have to have gone in the town, talk to the people who are going to overthrow the person, go outside, leave the town, save the game, turn off the game, turn the game back on, and then go back into the town. You can't just stay at an inn. You can't just rest overnight. Maybe it's just the version I was playing, but I went in and out of this town like at least 5 to 10 times, not knowing why the story was not progressing. It was the last orb I needed. I got all 5 of the other ones. And so I was just so frustrated at the point. I was like, I don't know if the game is going to finish. But we played the same version, so I knew there was a way.
Yeah. It is so cryptic. And like you said, there are parts of this game you flat out need a guide. It's just not really doable without it. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, as a gamer in 2021, it's just not really gonna happen unless you got a guide.
The other 5 orbs were fine. I had no problem with the pirate orb. I had no problem with Orochi orb. I had no problem with well, okay, so the one in the town that you have to stay overnight, that one got me. But this one, forget it. No, you can't do it.
I had to use it for another one. And I don't know the town's name. We're gonna not remember a lot of towns' names. Just deal with it. You'll understand. But there was one, and this was also a really weird quest where you had to use this potion to become invisible. and then
Yeah, and then
go
you have to go
into
into the castle and then
yeah.
go down and like push some boulders around.
And I didn't even realize the guy you talked to was like in the same area that was like, hey, you should use this potion to go invisible. I totally didn't even get to that. Like I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Um, but that was genius. And then I love that. There's like a weird almost stealth aspect to a part of the game. They just tried everything. They just tried to literally like, what can we possibly do? And they just said, let's do all of them. And
Yeah.
then there you go. Did you have any
Another
other? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one, this is the only other one, is the one where you have to go inside that like cave in the center of the island, and like you use the key, and there's a whole back part of the town. And
Hmm.
like if you played Dragon Quest 1 and 2, to explore the outskirts of every single town because there might be some area
Yeah,
behind it.
yeah.
This game pushes that to like a whole new extreme because there's like a town with a whole castle behind it that you wouldn't even know exists. There's another one that's like it's in Antarctica in the map, and you go there and it's like this area, it seems like there's nothing there, but you have to follow a very specific trajectory, and there's an old man in a hut in the back who says, I wish to see the cane one day. Like that transforms people.
Yeah. Oh my god, I missed that so many times. Just
Hmm.
trying to get because everyone there's a couple people that point you there, and they're like, "Yeah, just keep going northwest. You'll find it." And I'm like, "Well, I did it. I went like literally up, right, up, right, up, right. Didn't find it. Or sorry,
Yeah.
northeast or whatever. Can't remember." But yeah, that was a trip. That whole
Yeah.
thing is. It's, I admire the drive.
Yeah.
Even if maybe, and especially we played the Super Nintendo, I can't fathom some of these on the NES. But we even with the shortcomings that some of these had, just like the drive to be different and creative and like offer weird solutions to the problems in this game are so impressive.
They really put a lot of like onus on, like, I don't know, just being explorative, like wanting to explore the characters and the worlds. Like that town that was being plagued by the dragon Orochi, and like they had to sacrifice somebody every year. First
Hmm.
off, I love the music in that town.
Yeah,
It's called G Pang, and it's really good. Especially on the Super Nintendo version. But like you go in the cave, you destroy Orochi, and then you end up in the town again, and then the queen is hurt, and then but it's not clear that you fixed everything. That was super cool. There's another one, like you go in the cave and you can only send the hero, and you can't use magic in the cave, so it's literally like a whole quest.
yeah.
You're really on a quest with your characters, like to the end, and it's just such a personalized experience, and I think it's beautiful.